Now that we're done with the mixing phase, we can move on to the mastering phase. The mastering phase is very important to production because it's essentially the last chance you have to have a listen to the music or to your tracks before it gets to the distribution phase. I should also mention that I don't typically like to master my own mixes because I like to have an additional pair of ears be checking my mixes. And I typically like to hire out for that so that I can expand the amount of people involved in the project, have an additional pair of ears to check my mixes and give me notes. And it also helps me grow as a mixer. So for this project, I am going to be mastering it myself. One of the other things we're doing is we're just trying to make sure that the entire EP is cohesive. I don't want any listeners to have to adjust their volume or their stereo settings as they listen to the EP. I'd really like for them just to listen in one cohesive way where they don't have to make any adjustments when they're running or driving or anything like that. I'm also trying to make sure that it sounds competitive and it's at a good level that competes with all of the other mixes that are out there. So if any of my music gets placed on a playlist or anything like that, it'll still sound good compared to the other mixes. Nobody has to adjust the EQ on their stereo or the volumes on their stereo as they're listening to a playlist. Let's go ahead and get started by importing those mixes. Command-Shift-I brings up the import audio window. And so here's my folder with all my mixes. I have them in one place. And when I made these mixes, I made sure to export them out at 24-bit 48K. And when I made the mastering session, I used those exact same specifications, 24-bit 48K. So because of that, I don't have to copy these files into Pro Tools. I can just add them in. And by adding them in, Pro Tools will reference the original audio files for these mixes instead of making copies. And that way I can just save on a little bit of hard drive space. Now we have all the tracks in Pro Tools. I'll keep them on their own individual tracks for the mastering process, but I do want to order them correctly. So I'm going to start with Slow. That's going to be the very first song of the EP. And then we'll have Berry Lady, and then we'll have Summer Rose to end it all. Here's a little trick I like to do. I like to get into shuffle mode, and if I grab these files, I can put them all on the same track. Notice how it automatically butts them up against each other. Like if I'm going to drag that one down, it automatically goes to the very beginning. Now that they're all laid out back to back, if I select this clip and then hold Control and then drag it down, it doesn't let me drag left and right. I can drag all these back down to their own tracks. But notice how my playhead is right here. If I hold Control and click Summer Rose right here, it automatically snaps it to that location. So first I have to select it, then hold Control, then I can move down. After I do that, let's go ahead and start routing some of our tracks to the appropriate locations. I'll switch to the Mix window, highlight all three of the tracks, hold Option for all, Shift for that are selected, and we'll go out to a new track. We'll call this one Master because we're in the mastering process, and let's make that an aux input. And then let's take the output of the master and we'll put all that into a stereo audio track, call it Print. And I'm going to go ahead and solo save that and put it in input so that anytime I hit play, it's going to come out the print track. We can hear it. And when I use any plugins on this master track, it routes all three of these songs through that, and then we'll print that audio onto the print track. So now that we're set up and I begin to master, one thing I'm really trying to do is just make sure that it's one cohesive project. So like I mentioned before, I don't want anybody to have to change their stereo settings to listen to my music, especially when it's on a playlist or even if it's just being played back to back, all three of these songs. I'll use a combination of EQs, compressors, and limiters to get to that point. After some time messing around with the master, I have some multiband compression on essentially each track, and then I'm using some stereo width processing on the master bus, as well as some tape machine emulation. And then, of course, I'm using a limiter at the very end of my signal chain. I have over here it set to -1 decibels true peak for the ceiling, so it will make sure to never go above -1 decibels true peak. And this is to accommodate for any distortions that might occur, say on Spotify, where they're transcoding it down to a lossy compressed format, and that can cause additional distortions or bumps in volume here and there, and we don't want to get pushed into the zone where we're having digital distortion. So I like to make all of my masters be peaked out at -1 decibels true peak. I'm also using the Uline master meter just to check out my short-term and integrated LUFS to see where I'm at in the master. Spotify wants you to be at -14 LUFS, and that's fine, but you should be mastering according to what sounds good. At least that's my opinion. And we go along with whatever volume penalties we get from Spotify. If our master is at negative 12 LUFS, then they're going to accommodate from those extra 2 dB of loudness, and they'll give you a slight loudness penalty. But you can always drag your masters into this website, loudnesspenalty.com. You can always check to see how you'll be penalized on Spotify and such. It'll give you some notes here on that. But generally, the golden rule is just master something that sounds good. You'll also notice I have an additional track in here from this Monotron synthesizer that I have. I wasn't thrilled with how I was transitioning from the first song to the second song, so I went ahead and added this in there just to kind of help fill the space. Let's go ahead and check it out. I'm still messing around with it, but it's a fun idea for now. It's not very conventional, but it works out. After making additional tweaks to the master, I went ahead and printed the master. Now I have this one large audio file that I have to deal with. So I can use the boundaries of these clips to help separate this one clip out, because essentially all I did was just highlight the area I wanted and then hit record, and it recorded the output of all of these into the one track. So now I can grab this, use semicolon to go down, and hit B to break it, and do the same thing with this. B to break it. Now, of course, we can double check those changes, make sure it's something we like. In fact, actually, I'm not sure I like that. Let's go ahead and use this one instead. B to break it, and then I'll go ahead and heal that separation by either going to edit and then heal separation, or Command H to heal that. Let's check the other side. I can just double click this clip and then hit the right arrow key to go to the right side of the clip. And that looks good to me. Now I can rename these files. I can just use my grabber tool, double click on this clip, Command C to copy that, and then click on this one, or double click on this one, Command B to paste, and then I'll call this Master 1. Then we have Berry Lady right here, Command C, Command V. Same thing with this one. Another thing I probably should do is number these at the beginning of their names. Should have done that at the beginning, but I'll call this one 01 underscore. Same with this one, but we'll do 02. That way, whoever's listening to them knows the order, not just me. And it'll also order alphabetically in Google Drive as I use that to preview some of the masters in my car. But at this point, that is essentially it. As long as I like the masters, I can move on. I just need to make sure I export these out at the appropriate specifications for whoever I'm uploading to. So always make sure to double check Apple Music or Spotify's recommendations for their files, just to make sure that you're uploading the correct files. If you've watched all these, I really appreciate it and hope that you took something away from this, learned from all of my silly little mistakes, or perhaps from some of the interesting things that I might have done. I had a really good time making this little EP. This is something I've been wanting to do for a very long time, and I got in the right space to be able to do it, and it felt really nice. So I appreciate you coming along for the journey.